you to the fourth session of our international course, Teaching with Psychology and Technology. Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to sincerely thank Mr. Salman Khan, President of Mindscape, and Mr. Waqas Ahmed, founder of TalentQuest. This course wouldn't exist without their vision and dedication. Their commitment to making education more accessible, globally relevant, and genuinely human-centered continues to inspire us all. Each session so far has pushed us to think in fresh ways, and today is no exception. We'll be joined by Dr. Taufiq Makmun, a leading voice in creative language education. His work sits right at the intersection of AI, creativity, and learner empowerment. He'll be sharing insights on how today's tech-driven classrooms can either amplify or mute student voice, and how we, as educators, can ensure it's the former. He'll be joining us in just a bit to take us into this very conversation. So, to kick things off and set the stage, I'd like to invite someone whose passion and insight help make this course possible, Mr. Waqas Ahmed, the founder of TalentQuest. Today, he'll be speaking on a powerful question that speaks to the heart of learner-centered teaching. AI listens to prompts, but are we listening to students? Mr. Waqas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Anika, and thank you all for joining us today. I wholeheartedly welcome all of you to the third session of our course, Teaching with Psychology and Technology. The title, AI Listens to Prompts. Are we listening to students? This was a simple question that was raised earlier in the flyer. I'm not going to talk more. I'll just take a few minutes before the speaker comes to the session. I just want to set the stage, what the speaker will be talking about and what today's session will give us the ideas in the teacher-student relationship and the AI's humanization, and especially the biasness that we hold when we use AI for teaching purposes or learning purposes. Like we now have, if you remember the second session last week, we enforced some things about the AI or the technology in teaching and learning. So technology in the past was very simple. In today's age, we have generative AI, not just the linear AI. And in the future, we don't know what it will bring to us and what will it bring in the classroom. So, but in all this chaos, I would say, human is really confused, and sometimes this phenomena is really disturbing for the teachers, how to handle the ethical issues, how to handle specifically the biasness that we hold as teachers, and especially how to hold the students who are smarter than us, because we are dealing with this complex phenomena in this course, right? So let's reflect on a few things before Dr. Taufiq goes into the deep depth of today's tools. So as we know that this course, Teaching with Psychology and Technology, it wasn't designed to just give you some tools, because you all know about the tools. And there might be some people who will be using tools beyond ChatGPT, Gemini, or Grok, or even like for the research purposes, we have the Perplay, or we have a lot more, the Rabbit, and so on. But because of the use of AI, like while AI can be creative, it can be responsive, it can be even sometimes motivative and motivational and inspiring for us. But all of us feel that it brings bias with anxiety. And sometimes it creates like erasure in the room when you're using it. So especially in the language classroom, when we talk about where is the identity, like the human identity, the human creativity, that is our identity, right? With against the AI, the artificial identity. So we have the human identity. So it is becoming fragile and weak with the time, and our expression, like how we express, that also like it vanishes with the time. So why this matter for us in the 21st century? So Professor Dr. Taufiq, who is leading today's session and has asked a powerful question earlier when we were communicating about the session. So he asked me, A simple question, and that question is here for you. What happens when students use AI to revive unfinished things and AI rewrites it into someone else's world? You understand this question? Because AI is not getting the perspective that you are thinking, or your student are thinking. AI deals with something that is someone else's world, right? So that is the challenge of today's education and the use of generative AI. So instead of just going to enhance the voice, it also flattens it when it comes to students. And also, like, instead of representing the culture that you hold, it defaults the attributes of the culture, right? And like, like we have the Western tropes of witches or the stories that can remove the global South perspective entirely because dominating with the West. So here, dominating with the AI and the human attributes are being neglected or ignored with this glitch of technology. So that was the real dilemma to the silence aspects of the lost expressions of human beings, the anxiety that has been indulged with the AI because we are really dependent on it now, and we don't know how to get independent with the use of even AI and a lot of other things. So what we can do, like this is a simple question. Why are we here today in the third session? Because anything that we start, we wake up in the morning, and I know like it's 9 here in WIB, and in Pakistan it will be 7, in Africa it will be 5 a.m. So it's pretty earlier. So you are attending the meeting in the real early morning, right? So you would have a purpose in your mind that why you are attending this meeting, why are you so an early bird for this meeting. So the simple thing is AI for generation. All of us know that in the previous session by Ms. Muntaha Wasim, we were instructed by the different tools. Okay, so when we teach the students, we negotiate, we compromise, right? We have the outputs depends on our prompts, but how our students who are actually looking into the mouths of the teachers who are actually dependent on us sometimes, right? Though I know like independent classrooms but most of the audience here are from the third world countries where the student-centered classroom are not being appreciated. There are still teacher-centered classrooms. So their stories, like the students' perspective, their own experiences, and we as a teacher, how to listen to them, then how to take help from the AI and how to humanize them, and then how to remove the biasness and anxiety. So this is the today's talk, and as a talent quest purpose, you know about that. Technology is not just enough. We need heart. Technology is mind, AI is mind. You, humans, your heart. You have to combine both. And now the real dilemma is the culture because AI is a global thing. It doesn't know about your own regional culture, right? So the culture shaper, it is, yeah, the teacher. You are actually the culture shaper. You have to uh, teach your student how to use AI and not to compromise on your culture because that is your identity and your creative culture as well. That is your academic identity, the creativity. So I will just put two questions, which is my usual thing, which I do normally in the session to put questions and ignite the passion inside you, which you already have. So if AI listen to prompts, are we listening to students and are we listening to what our students actually want to say? Or just we wanna give them what we know and what we understand that it is important. And the second question is, are we preparing learners to use AI as a tool for creativity or as a tool that takes their creativity? So these are simple questions, and I'm really honored to welcome the speaker who is the leading critical conversation of today's session. He is a Fulbright scholar, as we know from the flyer. He went to the US for 2 times. One, if I am not wrong, in 2009 or 10, I think, for teaching the local language over there as a language assistant under Fulbright scheme. And then he recently went to the US for PhD, and he got his PhD in culture and identity and American studies. Currently, he is working as the head of the Department of English at the Sebelas Maret University, Surakarta, Indonesia. And I am really honored to be his student, and he's teaching us language policy and implementation. So I really enjoy his class. That is why I went to him and I discussed it. If I enjoy your class, my audience, my participants, my friends will also enjoy your session with us. So he agreed within with no time, and that was granted. I'm really happy with that. So now I'm honored to welcome him. Professor Dr. Taufiq Al Makmun, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Wakos. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, Assalamualaikum
Walaikum.
to everybody over here, and may God bless us all. Okay, so maybe I can also share the screen before I started the talk to make sure that
Sure,
what
yes.
is it? That, okay, can you see on the screen right now?
Yes, Prof.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I have a note over here just to make sure that I won't like a talk all over the places. So let me prepare my notes. So thank you for the introduction, Wakos. Also glad that you were enjoying my class, and also yes, I'm happy to share with you all, especially that like for those. Educators or future educators, and I'm more than happy, willing to share my experience, what I'm doing currently, especially related to what is being offered by Mindscape and also TalentQuest today. So today I would like to talk about critical co-creation, so navigating AI bias, anxiety, and agency in creative language classroom. But before I talk further, I might also need to share the background of what I've been doing currently. Especially this is the project that this is ongoing project, and then I already use this talk, but in the framework of cultural studies and communication media in a School of Media and Communication, Bowling Green State University last February. So actually, I just like repeat what I've been talking over there. But right now, I also understand that my audience might focusing more on how developing classroom with the presence of AI. So, as the background, so I would like to tell you, this is actually the project I've done from December to January, until just one. But as you know, that I develop like a pretty fast, like within even like in the past 4 months, everything has really been developed really wild. In January, I didn't really trust ChatGPT in terms of generating images, but now ChatGPT is like already developed widely in terms of generating images, and even right now, the duration is getting longer and longer using ChatGPT, especially in image generation. So I just also want to let you know this dynamic. So what I did is actually generating ideas through the arts of prompting and then materializing the image. Well, actually, in addition, as a researchers and then educators, I'm also a storyteller in the way that I wrote like some articles in the media and then short stories, and also making experiment with the AI lately. And I, as like everybody, including you all, I believe that you have unfinished work. With the presence of the AI, I have the existent. I will talk also later regarding the, what do you call it, authenticity, and then ownership, and then in terms of how we need to also state the transparency in terms of having AI as our co-creator. So materializing the imagine that I would call it. So this is the role of AI in creativity and critical thinking. If maybe many of you already using the approach of writing, for example, short story in your English classroom or in your classroom or even personal experience to narrate, have a narration of, for example, their past experience. But sometimes they also have a problem. So here, why it is related to technology and psychology, I would also highlight that it is both, that the AI present is both an anxiety shield, meaning that it may also act as a, what is it, as a helper, as an assistant, but also at the same time, it is also creating anxiety. Why? Because it also represent or even created potential trauma of one's erasure. This is the idea of bias that I will talk later. So what kind of action that we could do as an educator in our language classroom? What kind of activities that we can develop? So I would like to begin with that as the introduction of this talk. So the roadmap of my talks today is first talking about the anxiety in the way that agency or AI rescue or fills the unfinished stories, and then bias as a trauma when technology actually could also be act as the erasures of one's cultural identity. And then the next one is like a co-creation tactics. And then what kind of strategy, understanding the landscape and the structures of this AI that's already been there. I mean, in my discussion, last year, I think during the summer or spring last year, I joined what's a conference, and then I'm one of the speaker in one of the panel in the discussion of the use AI in our classroom as a communication strategy in our classroom. There were a lot of questions whether it is the time to ask or to prohibit our student not using AI. It might not be the option. Let's take a look about the use of calculator. I mean, we cannot prohibit our student not using technology, computer, and so on, because the development of technology has always been there. Yeah. And the impact or the effects are being experienced through history. Like, like the provision of, for example, analog, what do you call it? Like the provision of making calligraphy, for example, it's already been safeguarded by computerized technology and now within the AI. So this is like experience. We cannot stop our future generation not using or consuming AI, but rather we need to let them know on how to use this effectively to enhance their, like a future professional jobs. So this is like the idea that I would like to put at the first place. So then also data justice lab, what we can do, like auditing tools, is it possible? So, I mean, to take a look like the result and then how we can advocate if there is like injustices created by the structure of the AI, because we have to admit that AI is actually mirroring like, like what happened offline, like the domination of Western's narrative, for example, the dominance power economically, because all the data and information collected by AI are those existing data or who have the power of training the data. So those marginalized or having no access in training the data might not be represented. So we also need to understand this structure. So at the end, we can have like a Q&A session to understand your context and might be your solution in your classroom or in your daily activity today. So deep seeking. So I know that there are many different AI tools right now. I just use DeepSeek. This is part of why I use DeepSeek like last January when it was like a first arriving and then booming, because I assume that it's coming from China. There might be like a more representation of the East. Yeah, it was my assumption at the beginning. Yeah, because this is AI and then it is produced by, like a country like in China. So I assume that it might not be, what is it, as what is being conducted by ChatGPT as the representation as more Western narratives. Yeah, but wait, it might also be only my assumption. Yeah. So, for example, like the AI anxiety, why in my introduction, I mentioned that AI could be helper as a, what is it, like an anxiety shield. So for example, for me as a non-native English speakers, I might have like, no confidence in using English, for example, as a non-native speakers, or it might be also happening to many of your students because we're coming from mostly global South countries, but we want also to put the narrative within, like a global media, and of course by using the global dominant language, in this case English. So AI might be like playing the role as our anxiety shield, like help us in terms of re-narrating the idea and the information to be able to be delivered, for example, in English, and it could be read by, for example, a global audience. So AI could be helpful. Yeah, but we still producing the content, for example. Yeah, so this is the way, like, but of course, it's also demanding prompt literacy. The way that we producing prompt, it's also matters the way that whether it will represent of what we want or it will be like, what do you call it? When we are standing in front of the mirror and then we're using AI, this is like the analogy, whether we will see our reflection in the mirror or it could be like a totally someone else or even the non-existent of us within the mirror reflection. So this is the question. I mean, if we don't use like a correct prompt, the reflection might not really what we want. I mean, we know when we know, right? I mean, when we going in front of the mirror, we expect there will be a reflection. So meaning that we also have expectation in our hand. But when we do like a creative prompt, the generated ideas might not be like what really expected. So that's what I highlight as maybe there would be the necessary need of a prompt literacy. So it's linked to the psychological thing that it might also scaffold the confidence. So in my English classroom, teaching Indonesian student, for example, or like I also ever has experience, as mentioned by Wakus, it was in 2007 and 2008. I was teaching Indonesian language and culture in Columbia University. So I have like I had American student at the time, and then they wanted to learn Indonesian language. Yeah. So many of the cases actually like they don't have a confidence to use the language right because the fear of making a mistake is always be like hanging on thing over there, especially for language learners. So AI and then the coming of media tools like YouTube and then many different technology that internet-based has been like ease this process over time, including today we have AI. So let's take this angle using AI to scaffold your student anxiety. Let's use AI also as the anxiety shield in, for example, language learning. So it could be the angle or the perspective that we can develop. And again, like a media, just like if we did back of a time, is always like a changing, just like AI. So from like last year, 2024 until today, like how many, like a new brand AI like being produced and offered. Yeah. So after DeepSeek, and then we have Q-Wen, and then right now Gemini also going wild, and then even X also having Grok, for example. Meta AI also invading our everyday conversation through WhatsApp. So meaning like our everyday conversation, even like a messenger like WhatsApp, is already being, facilitated and equipped with AI. So it is like our environment. So the option is not saying no to AI, but rather how to use this to enhance and assist the process, assisting the process of knowledge production, learning process. So that's I think the mentality that we need to develop. So in my case, for example, I use DeepSeek and also Q-Wen Canva to in the production of creative products. Yeah, I used to write by my own writing, and then with the coming of AI, I tried the idea of co-creating using AI. Yeah. Yeah, even though that from my experience, it was also not an easy process either, because with somebody with the experience and then understanding the process, we have like a more demanding, because when we generate an information, we also have tools in our mind to correct whether this is what we want or not. Again, back to the idea of mirroring ourselves. We have the expectation. So whether it is like what we expect or not. So when it is launched, I try to use it and to try to understand the structure and how I could use it effectively in whatever project I develop. For example, like writing a proposal, and then writing a short story, but also always the question of authenticity and bias that I will discuss further. Yeah. So this is like many unfinished work, like in my job, my working desk, like when I come back, whether it is, or even like in my archive. So I have like this proposal only 50%, but the idea was there. And then what do you call it? I have a short story that I wrote like 10 years ago. I know like what it's supposed to be, but then what do you call it? Because of other distraction, and then it was unfinished. So with the coming of the AI, we can always revisit and how to like to reproduce. For example, with the prediction of the ending, and then with the help of the AI, it might also be creating like something different, or maybe the same like what you expecting. But you or us can always do like reprocessing, even if we want to redo it from the very beginning. So meaning that AI prompt literacy necessary in this process, I mean, to control the generated ideas. Because I think in using AI, it's not only that we try to believe the AI 100%, but also we are like an active subject, active human being with a mind as a thinker. We also have what do you call it, like something what we want, and we can use this desire as a controller, like is that really representing what I want to generate? So I think this is also related to the critical thinking. As an educator, I do believe that we also following the development of a Bloom taxonomy, in terms of the way that educators like keep developing the ideas over time, that what do you call it? Even the idea of teaching and learning are also developed over time, because of like many different technology. Like this one, for example, the process of evaluating the generated result also matters in our process. So understanding the process And then having knowledge in our mind is really important and necessary to be to develop this critical reaction to whatever generated ideas will be presented by the AI tools ahead us, or appearing in the what do you call it, on the screen when you prompt a particular idea. So like, I think it's like a reiterating process, like again and again reprompting until we can find like whatever it is necessary, or even we can just use whatever generated and then we just put it in on our laboratory and we can develop, expand it in our minds. So it would also represent the idea of what we have in our expectation. So this is also coding the word, but also related to the experience. Through the reiteration process and exercise, we may understand the structure. For example, if we are not represented, and then we need to do like a 3 process of prompting, at the beginning, to be able to recall any data on by the structures. Maybe in the next process, we can create 1 prompt, but this already giving us the idea of what we want to be represented because of the experience. So again, like the practices and understanding the structures, and then our knowledge would be really important in this process. That's why at the very beginning, I use the terminology of co-creating rather than let the AI do the magic. I don't know if you are all following J.K. Rowling, because I'm from also literature, like Harry Potter, for example. If AI is like a magic wand that helping, like the witches, for example, to get a magical thing, even like they need like a proper prompt to recall the magical appearance that they expect. When they don't have like a proper, like a magical spell, it might go wrong. Yeah, so this is like, I think the best idea or the analogy that come in my mind. Yeah. Okay, so I have what is it, the link that I share in the chat room that you might can visit. I put it in the chat room. So this is like, for example, the interface of any chatbot. I believe it's familiar to you all. ChatGPT, DeepSeek. So it is like getting more and more familiar tools in our life. So the stories. So this I already send it to you, the link, and you can always be there. There are like, I think, tons of stories that I put it over there, like the unfinished that I try to generate it. But each of these stories that part of my project, and I think this is within the range of December until January before my February talks to what is it, like to explain the structure of AI is also part of my research process, like working with the AI and then try to make conversation and to understand the structure of AI themselves. So this is like one of the example if you can access there. This is the letter that never came. So it was a very dark, sad story about Indonesian migrant workers, and so like leaving the family behind, expecting them to come home. And of course, this story, the plot is I created like all the plot. But then I even like I have like 70% of 75% of the story is like in English writing, but then I just like prompting here and there to finish this story. And then let's take a look over there. I use not by as part of the AI ethics. I think it's also strategizing and acknowledging. For me, it's like what do you call it? as a co-working space with the AI. I use the term Imagine by Taufiq Makmun in DeepSeek. So this is part of the AI ethics. I did not claim like the whole part is really my words, but in this case, why I really need to make this finish, because I want this narration to be heard globally. As I want this narration to be heard, I need to finish the story, unless it's only becoming archive, like in my storage. But when I finish it, there's like potential being published and the story being read by others. So my end goal is that this voices is supposed to be services. When it was unfinished, it cannot be read by others. Yeah. So my restless that I deliver in the form of story, like to affect the society, can potentially be done with a co-authoring with a such AI. But of course, I use like the idea of AI ethics over there. So is that also the question is that will it be like our future strategy in teaching writing? I mean, I just give you also this as a part of the option. This is not the only one, but it would be the option for your future uh, uh, teaching strategy. Or so, for example, in part of my story, instead of like generating the narration, and I also use images or visual representation, because I always believe that visual presentation have a very strong impact in affecting readers, especially to this generation. I think I never been like I'm a digital migrant because I'm growing up in the 1980s and I'm a seniors. And then my teenagers during the early 90s. So I have like a different, what do you call it, background compared to most of you right now in the Zoom, I believe. And, or I might be wrong, but maybe also some of you is part of the digital migrant. So meaning that I grew up during the analog era, but then what is it? I learned how digital being developed wildly from the late 1980s until today, from the computerized and then digitalized, and then the coming of social media, interconnected world, internet, and so on. And then now AR coming as part of our today's life. So let's take a look at this example. So the visual technology, for example, is part of the a story. I use the idea of which, I mean, in literature, we always have many imaginary things to enhance, because we need like, like a story to attract people, even though this is not exactly what we want to deliver. There are like ideas inside of it that we want to deliver, but through a particular representation. So, for example, like over there, up there, like at the witch, if I create a prompt, create an image of a witch, like in a Q-Wen over there, or even in Canva, yeah, and then down there on the on the second picture is created by ChatGPT. I do believe, like without any specific information to give the context, it will give us to the idea of, the narration of a witch of Salem, which is always leading to white women as a witch, the representation of witch. So it's not only about the witch thing, but what I want to highlight is that this narrative dominate the idea of witch representation. Meaning, if we think about witch of the South, it might not be there unless we give like a particular coding or particular prompt to give the context that it may generate something else other than the dominant narrative. So this is like then I call it as a psychological violence, because it might not represent of what we want. No, that's not the witch that I want to have in my short story. I don't really talk about white women over here. But again, because the AI is a structure that already been built and structured by a particular dominant narrative, it might mislead what really want to be represented. So we need to struggle more. Yeah. So for example, in my other story that I use the character names Maharani, the Maharani's surgery quest revealed AI's Eurocentric beauty standard. Well, actually, I want to represent any Japanese woman named Maharani. But when I said that it is a woman, then it's like more the representation of Eurocentric beauty standard. So it reminds me the idea of the colonial ideology that, again, AI and big data is another torture psychologically when we're coming from the non-dominant narrative position, like, for example, global south, that we are not represented. So even though like AI bias is not like something new, because like from the arrival of the AI since like 2021 or even 2015, there already been like many writing about the algorithm when it was from related to social media, that the dominant narrative keep directing or leading the ideas being circulated digitally, yeah, meaning that it is like another colonial, like effort, yeah, in terms of if I use the idea of Ami Kaplan, it is cultural imperialism. So visualizing the image and bringing stories to life with Canva and Q-Wen. So this is what I did, just for the example. I think I already mentioned about it, and then I would like to give you. So this is, for example, the left is like what were the images that keep coming when I try to have the symbols of today's witch. I mean, as a thinker or somebody that try to speak differently, as you know, that I use the witch narrative to deliver the idea that somebody different from the society, because there's like a thinkers or considered different from the society, to have this kind of representation, and also taking the right vehicle of many that this kind of. But the left images is like what always like a coming up, surfacing without any specific what do you call it? Like prompt that represent the context of what I want. And then on the right, and finally I could also generate like a different types of feature or physical faces that represent a different identity, because the left one might not match with the idea of witches of the South in my mind when I produce the short story, and then the right. But could you imagine like the process that I have been doing to generate the right one? It is like, like a prompting, re-prompting, like a reiteration of the process to finally, and it could be like psychological torture. Now, go back to our classroom. Imagine if our student, our little kids, or, like your surrounding, try to use the AI, and then they keep being fed by big data dominated by the narratives that do not represent them. So this tool might not, what do you call it, be acting as the anxiety shield, but indeed like creating the anxiety themselves because of the idea of being marginalized or being not represented by the AI structure. Yeah. So this is the faceless Maharani. So and finally I use that because, but it's also the way that my my story and then might be, but it is good example the way that I finally decided to use like a more Western images over there, because I keep prompting, and then what is like a beauty standard is represent like a Western beauty of standard. But also the story is also criticizing that. But I just keep leaving this also as part of the question that I using the image of more Western beauty standard, but actually it is being challenged by the story of a woman being restless of their condition and then try to reimagine themselves through surgery and then finally mimicking like a Western beauty standard. I mean, this is like the story that keep being criticized by a dominant cultural narrative. I mean, the idea of Michael Jackson having surgery to be white because the society in the US or global society was dominated by what narrative. And then that's an extreme example, right? That it is like a psychological torture for those being part of this. For example, if we are AI users and we are not represented, it would be like a torture. So again, if you or us let our student to use AI, we need to understand the structure that we need also to train the AI with the data that represent us, because we cannot just let the data torturing our community by marginalizing us only as a users, and then our brain is being washed with such dominant narrative. So I think it's a very critical question that if we use AI, we also need to equip our student with this structure so they will understand that it is coming. Yeah, it is coming. But by keep using with our context, we also might intervene the AI with the narrative that we have. So this is also an effort. This is also an action that we need to do to intervene the AI structure. So we can do like a discussion maybe. Yeah. If sorry, I need to go back over here. So, sir, when text or tools made you or student feel culturally invisible, how did it impact or motivation, confidence? Do you have something in your mind? So, for example, if you generated an information, but the information is like a misleading to generate something there, you may share on the chat room what is your feeling, how can it impact motivation? Let's connect it to our today's station, technology and psychology. Does it psychologically affect you? Maybe yes, maybe not. If you want, you can share in a chat room. How did it impact motivation and confidence? If you are, for example, in my position, you want to call the data of, for example, representation of a more Indonesian faces or Japanese faces, and information on the AI, or it's like a keep coming, are actually this coming from Western narrative. What's going to be your feeling? Yeah, so you can just share if you have the ideas. I just want to give I just want to be like somebody talking all the time, but I also want to interact with you all guys. I mean, if, for example, you are in such position, what will be happening, or what is your feeling? And then I think this is empathetical approach, to understand your student. Yes, there's some Shed Sohib Hassan. I think it makes us machine dependent, like Darwin theory. We may lose our minds creativity. Well, yes. First, it could be it's a dependence. It's like one thing, yeah. But also understanding the structure, we also need to think critically that it seems like generate something beautiful, like what we want, but we also need to understand critically that it might not represent us either. So I think this is also one other thing that, okay, keep giving your ideas on the chat room. So in my case, for example, co-creating resistance, when I do Jugendit, means the name of the characters, like the local woman character, it is a name of Japanese woman. I rejected the AI's tragic ghost women trope, for example, because it represents like a white woman or woman coming from, like a Western narrative. Instead, then I try to anchor it in a Japanese Ratu Kidul. So Ratu Kidul is a spirited power within Japanese community, a spirit of protection, justice. So when I prompted and then the result is not what I want, then I need to recreate the prompt and doing reiteration. But what was in my idea at the time is not only I wanted what I want, but also I want to train the AI to also include the narrative that I have in mind, because otherwise I will always follow the narrative being offered by the AI, which is dominated by particular narrative. So for example, in this case, I use the anti-bias prompt formula that I put cultural archetype as the contact, and then power verbs, and then the anti-stereotype cue. If the stereotype of, for example, I want to generate the image of witch, for example, I use the anti-stereotype that it is not a white women witch, for example, to get the anti-stereotype cue. So I think it's related to the cultural studies theories in terms of, like a cultural stereotype, the way that multiculturalism enable the interconnection and the conversation of otherness, that some ideas or social ideas might be really intervened by the dominant narrative. So for example, I use Japanese female guardian draped in batik and so on. So this is, and then finally I got like the ghost what I want. It is not a blonde haired ghost, but rather representing Japanese old woman, for example. And then the banyan tree to represent the tropical countries in the background, or the mountains over there. So this is like the example that I have. So for example, I could think that when I try to generate, like this is the example that I use in Q-Wen, like without any context, for example, and then I want to generate a classroom. And so it will be like a classroom of, like a teacher is white, and then the student is having different identity, as we can see from the time. But the classroom, like really represent like a Western classroom with, like a many different immigrants, and then the teacher is a white male, for example. But if you want to generate like a more specific, I believe like this classroom does not represent Indonesian classroom, for example. It does not represent Pakistan classroom, or Indian classroom, or African classroom. And we can see from the structure, from the building, from the chair, from the tables, and from the participant or audience in the room. Yeah, because it is like a more like a dominant narrative that we may picture maybe from the Hollywood media, or maybe from the more like a Western media, or something like a more circulated within the internet. Let's take a look that big data are majorly dominated by such narrative that might negate the existence of the others coming from different identity. So if we want to represent Indonesian classroom, or a classroom in Java, or a classroom in different islands in Indonesia, or a classroom in Africa which I believe having different building structures, because it is also culture, architecture, and so on. We need to give like the contra narrative as a prompt. So prompting is also need such kind of awareness. But let's take imagine if we keep prompting within like a different ideas of classroom, we will also enrich the big data owned by the structure of what do you call it, of the AR structure themselves. So this is like, I think, both ways process that we're not only a users, but we also have responsibilities to recreate. So if somebody also like being dependent on the AI, so they are not like being what do you call it, colonialized by those dominant narrative. So rewriting the erasure. So this is kind of activities that you can do we can do in our classroom. We can ask our student, for example, to make a prompt. Yeah. When they like for any everyday life activities. Yeah. So when it is like everyday activities and then diagnose the bias and scenario. If it's just like the image over there. So the image on screen right now is like a women in hijab, like facing a mirror, but the mirror only reflects behind her, like the environment, but not her face or her appearance, because this is like extreme example of erasure. I mean, you are in front of the mirror and then you expect that you have your reflection in the mirror, but the mirror refuses to reflect you. So it's just like, like a being erased from the reflection. It's just like what we need to think about if the AR does not represent us. So this is the bias, like a deeper than just misleading information, but also this is negating existence of a particular identities. So I have from also Muhammad Wasim on on the chat room. I once tried to download an educational document that included on examples from recent American research. Exactly. Yeah, because there might be like, what do you call it? A digital humanities project, like a widely conducted within Western country, like United States or European countries, but not conducted in like a global South countries, because they have like a different focus in the way that not many research data is being recorded digitally. So this is also the gap that also we need to in our process, whether as an academia or as an educators, we need to understand this. This is also call for action that we need to do more research, or we need to conduct any project of including those research project into digital data. So in the way that it could be recorded and could be pulled by such AI to have representation of, for example, our research within different setting. Otherwise, the knowledge production, once again, only representing the dominant narrative. And it is very dangerous for, like the future knowledge production, because representation matter at the most, and the basic for foundational in knowledge production. I think like a many paradigm developed lately in terms of decoloniality, decolonizing methodology, and decolonialization. I mean, it is like a going developed 20 years after post-colonialism. Yeah, I think it's not only post-colonial thinking that's still based on Western paradigm of theories, but right now also decolonial, that we develop theories that develop within the local or different society. Yeah. So if you ask your student to make a prompt, and then the prompt does not represent them, what will you do? So that's the question. Will you do any efforts to do otherwise? Or to, for example, intervene the AI to have a different information. Yeah. So first, I think psychologically, it's also built resilience. When it is dependent and you keep reprompting, and then until you get what you want, first, it is also psychological things about resilience. Resilience in the digital era to gain representation. At other point, we also try to intervene AI with our narrative. Sorry. So this is like the challenge of bias. AI and cultural representation. So the observation, like AI tools reflect Western-centric biases or Eurocentric. It's based on the data. So back to my assumption, when first like a DeepSeek and Q-Wen as part of my experiments that I expect and assume it might represent more like a global South countries or at least Eastern ideology like China, but I might be wrong because the idea of AI is pulling the information that already been circulating within the big data structure on the internet. While the internet are dominated by Western or Eurocentric narrative, even though the AI is coming from like the Eastern countries, when they also have the same system, actually they pull, you know, like not really far away from one from the other. So as I mentioned, that even I use Q-Wen, this is like a Chinese AI, but it's still generating Western narrative. Just like when I use the AI structure, this is also generated in Q-Wen, I think, if I'm not mistaken. The picture over there is more representation, for example, of the creature or the structures of what do you call it, white women, rather than, for example, the feature, I mean the physical structure, rather than those other identities. Well, the broader implication is that there will be like a lack of diversities, and then it may reinforce the social hierarchies. So this is like a created regime, that gender and cultural regime in AI outputs. I use the second point because I use this in our previous talk, that they focus on the gender regime, meaning that the data production is really affected by the dominant narrative. This is what Ignacio and Quinn highlighted as a data feminism, meaning that whatever data that's already been circulated, it is dominated by a particular narrative. It's not about like a gender identity per se over here, but it is more data feminism is talking about there are many marginalization of other identity for not being represented. Yeah. So I think it is like when we do in a classroom to do this, like a co-creating with AI, it is also part of a call for action. We need like a data justice, that the data might not represent our identity. So what we need to do, I think we also need to do like what we call as advocating the information. What kind of action that we could do? Yeah. So at least in our small environment, in our classroom, we need to advocate our students that they need to understand the structure. Just like back in the colonial era, we did not understand that, for example, some countries being colonialized because of the propaganda of the colonizers. So we need like, for example, like decades or even 100 years, or even until today, like we still within those particular cultural imperialism with a particular narrative of a certain identity. So we need to create this awareness to our student. That there is the possibilities of a such kind of domination within whatever technology that we consume today, because we need also to advocate our classroom, our student, or right now, for example, I advocate like this audience over here to create awareness that we can, even when we like dependent on the AI, we need to understand the structure, these possibilities, and the possibility of the erasure that we might not really aware or being hegemonized by using Gramsci terms, yeah, the hegemony of those narrative. Yeah, so sometimes we don't realize, and we call it this is as the common knowledge, but it might not be, and then we need to critically ask, yeah, or even like we need to do any movement. For example, we can just telling those, for example, if you use Q-Wen and then let Q-Wen AI understand that they need to include narration, advocate. We need to do any action to let them know that there is like marginalization. Because in our classroom, we always need to think about agency. We also need to think about inclusion when we are not being included. So this is like a critical reflection on authenticity, like on my work, for example. Yeah, because it is undeniably, we cannot avoid that our students will use and consume AI, even though when we prohibit it in our classroom, I mean, there is no guarantee that they will still access it at home or outside of our classroom. And it is okay because this is the landscape of our today's technology. But like we thought, let them know that there is this potential issues. We, as an educator, we also might let them into, like technological trap, yeah, or what do you call it? The cycle of the reproduction of colonialization through the AI regime that we need also to think about. Okay. So, like AI skills is really important. Crafting effective prompts, refining and evaluating a Bloom taxonomy, also the outputs, and then AI as collaborator, not a replacement. So I think this is really important. Back to the analogy of calculator, we need to understand the number before using calculator. We need to understand the symbol of multiplication, and then division, equalization, or like a more complicated math terms before finally we are able to use the calculator. Otherwise, if a calculator is nothing, it's just like a something that seems complicated, like a technology, but we cannot use it properly, or even computer. Yeah. I think this is the idea of empowerment that having many NGO like in the 90s, like coming to the village, remote island, bringing computers, but they assume that all the people in this area will be able to use the computer, but it is like a need a scale. I need to understand what computer is and then how to use it to enhance their daily activity or the productivity that they need in their life. So I think as an educator, it is like our for whatever subject that we teach, or even here like in a creative writing, for example, in English creative writing, we need to like give this awareness on how it could be like useful tools for our student. So, well, yes, the role of human creativity, humans and machine can collaborate. I mean, because machine is collaborator, yeah, but it is not something that dictate us. So when we use the term dependence, then there's also critical question: how far we believe the AI that will give us information, like how far it would help us, and then where the position of human being over here within the interaction. I think this is like a critical question that we need to develop over and over within the developing within the developed structure of the AI, because like 2 years ago when ChatGPT first introduced, they might not included like a more sophisticated big data like what they have today. But now let's take a look. It's like going wild. Or even Google Translate, yeah, like 15 years ago. I didn't really believe Google Translate can help me, but right now it would help me like in many very different languages. It would help better because it is like a machine that is trained, meaning the user is actually by all means training the machine. If we keep using the machine, meaning that we also train the machine. So I think this is like the thing that we also need to understand on how to use this machine as part of the awareness, but also to understand that it's already been trained by particular information that may negate our existence. That's the way that we need to struggle for. Okay? Yeah. So, for example, like a story or image is reflects cultural complexity. So we need to. So I come to like the end of my presentation. So call for the action in my classroom is to put this awareness. So just like over there, like many different images over there, like how can you find the representation of, like yourself, yeah? Or you just let it be being erased or underrepresented. Yeah, I do believe when we come to the mirror, we expect that our expression and our body will be reflected on the mirror and not the other way around. So I think the future of AI in creative practices is shaping the future of AI. Let's do the action. If it is not represented, tell them, or we keep using by giving like a non-stereotypical information to train the AI themselves. And so the need for diverse and inclusive data sets, advocating for ethical AI practices. I think that's a part of my conclusion, and then ensuring AI tools reflect global cultures, the role of critical engagement in using AI. So I think critical thinking, again, is a very important in this case. If we have ideology and teaching our students using high order critical thinking, I think in using AI, it is similar. Use our human capability as an evaluators, yeah, in this matter. So this is the call for action. So for example, like do like a digital humanities project, like in UNS, in my university, I'm involved in a Javanology Institute, for example, that we're collecting many philosophical works, and we try to do like a digitalization. We collaborate, for example, with Wikimedia, that right now becoming one of the major semantic data globally consumed by people. So I think it is also very strategic to collaborate with them to share the visibilities and our works to be put over there so it is accessible. I think just like the idea in chat room earlier, I try to remember your name, Muhammad Wasim, for example, mentioning how our voice is to be heard in terms of academic works, yeah, doing the research and then publish, just that structure, yeah. Otherwise, they will keep producing the knowledge based on more dominant narrative. Yeah. So embracing AI with wide open is my final slide. I think recap the key point: AI is tool for creativity, but there is like challenges of bias, and again, it's also psychological thing, and that be careful if we let our students using AI. It can be both, like becoming anxiety shield or making their confidence growing, but also at the same time, it might also killing their creativity or creating trauma or traumatize them without any awareness that it may also reproduce the anxiety of the dominant narrative if the identity of users is not represented. So let's shift. So this is the call for action using whatever platforms that we have. We can shape the future of AI together because it is undeniably part of our lives. So I think I don't know. I have to put the floor back to Wakos or Miss Anika, but I think that's what I will leave for this forum. If we have a question and an answer session, I will be happy to be here to be involved and in the discussion. I may not give you all of the answers, but we can develop critical discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Taufiq, for such a powerful and thought-provoking session. It was definitely interactive, exactly what we're looking for on this platform. Your clarity, compassion, and real-world experience gave us a lot to reflect on, and we are deeply grateful for the time, energy, and knowledge you shared with us today. Like Dr. Taufiq said, we now have time for questions. If anyone would like to ask directly, please feel free to raise your hand and unmute when prompted. You're also welcome to type your questions in the chat box. If anyone has questions for Dr. Taufiq, please unmute your mic and you may ask the questions. Yes, Ismail Shazad, you have your hand up. You may unmute your mic and ask your question. Ismail Shazad. Ismail Shazad, your hand is raised.
You're still muted, I think.
All right, for those of you who cannot unmute your mic, you can also type in the chat box. Miss Nguyen, Vietnam, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm sorry if I butchered the name. You may unmute your mic and ask your question. Your mic is not unmuted. It's still mute. All right, Mohammed Wasim has a question. Is AI truly independent in its responses, or does it depend on the instructions of its developers? If it does, how can we say it is free from biases? Dr. Taufiq?
I just try to give any references on the chat box. Wait a second. Oops. I think I have a question over there about references, and then I try to put it over there. Okay, so yes, developer, yeah, pay what is it like play very important roles. Yeah, this is also as a users first we need to that like the strategy that we need like give like a more and more information, but not only for the AI themselves, we can also do that action. That is why when I say, like, when we are not being represented and then tell them, we can send like a email, for example, to to let them know. But again, this also could be something that can be controlled by AI developer. Because otherwise, if it is fully controlled by the users, how could we imagine? But I think it's like, for example, like ChatGPT right now, they also have following the regulation, for example, for minors, because they are in the US and they have a very, I think it's also related, for example, to legal issues. And then if, beyond that, it's also ideological, that AI developer can control what is like being there and not. Yeah. So I think it's very critical question that it is not like a fully represent the uses, because the AI or the developer, the AI developer themselves also have like the license to control what is being circulated, what like the data sources that they try to pull when they generate the information. So that is why when I mentioned about when there is like a Q-Wen and then DeepSeek, I also have the idea that there might be also like a different narrative that will be given by the AI, because I consider that the ideology of the developer matters. Not only that, but also the regulation. So for example, if we try to generate information about kids or minor, yeah, using ChatGPT, especially for the image, I believe you will got like an answer from the ChatGPT that it is against our regulation, for example. So meaning that, yes, the AI have a such authority, because as a developer, they can control what information is being generated. So yeah, that's my answer, Ms. Anika. I think there's also other question on the chat box. I don't know.
Yes, there is. That was a really good answer, sir. Thank you so much for that. Ismail Shazad, you are on mute now. You can
Yes,
ask your
ma'am.
question.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Sir, I want to ask that you talked about the ChatGPT and Q-Wen like software. Hello.
Well, that's sorry, I couldn't hear like clearly, Ismail. Can you repeat your question? Sorry, I was like reading a question on the chat. Could you repeat?
Respected sir, you talked about ChatGPT and Q-Wen like software. Can we get a report or a proposal from there which could be free from plagiarism?
Yeah. So that is why, I mean, if we use AI, be careful of your authenticity. I think transparency is needed. Yeah. So if we plagiarism, so for example, when I generate a poem or a poetry, knowledge is very important, because sometimes they just like grab it from the famous poet like Robert Frost, for example. So with the knowledge, we know when we know. I mean, if we don't know, we may just use it. So if we use AI as a co-creator, I think right now there are also many publishers that already admit that people working with the AI. So AI transparency are needed, like the statement. I think one of my strategy that because it's also for my teaching purposes, I use the term imagine in DeepSeek, because what I'm thinking is it is imagination from but it's not my fully work. Then I need to mention, for example, this is like the AI's use statement. But I know like becoming comments, next week I would like to have one session in one conference in yeah.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah, so
Right.
yeah, so
Okay,
just
sir. Thank you very much, sir.
yeah, protect yourself. Yeah, so we need to do like a AI transparency. That's like really needed. Right now becoming common to give this statement. It is fine, but we need to just to mention it. I think this is academic tradition. We always quote, cite ideas and then put it on the references, including when we use AI. We need to state this transparently. I think that's the ethical things that we could develop.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Ismail, and thank you, Dr. Taufiq. Now we have another question from Aisha. How do we modify our prompts to get more authentic responses?
Yeah, I think it's in one of my slides. I might need to replay it. Yeah, I just copied. So the references already put there. If you want to have like a further reading, I think it is like, like to pull the data somewhere. This one. I think we can use that as strategy, like how to, create a prompt. Like when we have like a cultural archetype, and then we have like the power verb, for example, like represent something, but also we need to put the awareness to the AI that the anti-stereotype Q, for example. So instead of only create an image of a witch, for example, then we can also specify what kind of, for example, identity or the anti-stereotype cue that we want to, for example, want to have, for example. When we have like generate an idea of holy book, for example, just try to find like what image that it will be given, or what kind of information, if you need a text or narration, will be given. And then if we give like a special context, so again, it's just like in cultural studies, I mean, contextualizing matters in this case, just like the using AI. Otherwise, what is like a being given in our our plate is gonna be like more, like the common menu. Otherwise, we tell the waiters that we need a specific menu, that we want to eat. Yeah. But yeah, it's not as such that's easy task either, actually. Thank you for the question. Yes, it is like one thing that for me is part of the reiterative process. And again, for those not included in the dominant narrative, it is like more jobs. Yeah, because our identity will only be represented when we do more things or more prompts. Yeah.
Absolutely, thank you. Now we have Muhammad Zubair. He has asked, imagine you are training an AI specifically for creative writing in your classroom. What specific types of texts, authors, genres, and perspectives would you insist on including in its training data to minimize bias? Why are these crucial?
Yeah. Yeah. So when we like imagine or using an AI again, why it is like a crucial that we also involve like using AI even just to train the data, because it is about knowledge production. Look at like this is as an educator our responsibility. Like when we write a book, or when for me it's writing a stories or writing in the mass media, or just tweet it on the X, or with like having idea on our social media, is actually want to have our ideas being delivered and heard. Yeah. If we don't try following, like the vehicles, the production of knowledge will be affected by particular narrative that not represent, like a particular identity. So there's going to be like a lack of diversity. When it is a lack of diversity, can we imagine if the policy making of the global industry are based on those dominant narrative? It's again, it's impact to our life either. So this is like the day when why we need to write a book, why we need to publish a book, because our idea may storming other people, may influence other people to think differently. This is also the same thing. So the crucial thing is that it is about knowledge production. As an educator, I think we really what do you call it? Put this at the first place because we want our environment to acknowledge like more and more existence of different identities rather than like a mono identities.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Taufiq. I believe these are all the questions that have been provided as of now. Thank you for your thoughtful answers. Again, we highly appreciate that you were here with us. You were able to join us and give such an inspirational and motivating session. Hopefully, every participant had something they could take away from this session, and hopefully they'll be able to apply it to their daily lives as well. And as we wrap up today's session, I want to thank each of you for being here and for bringing such curiosity, openness, and thoughtfulness to this shared learning space. Your presence is what makes this community meaningful. Today reminded us that the classroom is no longer just a place. It's a space we co-create with our learners, using every tool at our disposal to ensure they feel seen, supported, and empowered. There's a quote I often return to: technology gives us power, but education gives us direction. And when we combine the two with intention and care, like we did today, we start to build something truly transformative. Looking ahead, we'll continue with sessions that blend presentations, projects, and interactive activities designed to deepen your learning. Your active participation is what makes this course truly come alive, so stay engaged, stay curious, and keep those questions coming. We know you're excited for what's next. Details for our 5th course will be shared in due time, and trust me, it's going to be something to look forward to. Thank you once again for being here with us today. We look forward to learning with you again very soon. Again, Dr. Taufiq, it was an utmost pleasure and honor to have you with us today. Now over to Mr. Waqas Ahmed, if there's something you would like to add before we end this session.
Okay, thank you, audience, for your engaging listening and for your active participation in today's session. That was the 3rd one in the course. And hopefully we will be sharing with you the information regarding the next session. It might be taking place after 20 or maybe the next week. So you will be informed through the group. I'm really honored and thankful to the speaker, Professor Dr. Muhammad Taufiq Al-Makmun, for his valuable time, insights, and presentation. And the material for the presentation, I will try to share in the group later on, and the recording of the session will be shared with you as soon as it is available online, maybe tonight or tomorrow morning. So thank you for your patience again, and I hope to see you in the 4th session of the course. Once again, thank you so much, Professor Dr. Taufiq Al-Makmun, for your valuable time.
No.
Thank you.